And so he gives this parable to this lawyer who is trying to justify himself by asking, who's my neighbor supposed to be? And then he asks the lawyer in verse 36, which of these three do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell into the robber's hands? And he said, the one who showed mercy toward him. And then Jesus said to him, go and do the same. And so again, this lawyer came to Jesus with the intention of testing him. And really it gets flipped and he gets put to the test. And Jesus does what he so frequently does, is here's a question and doesn't actually respond to it. It does not actually, or doesn't answer it the way the person asking it would like, right? He answered his question really with a question, right? Because the lawyer came and said, well, who is my neighbor? And I think Jesus uses this parable to really position it to the lawyer and say, it's not about who is your neighbor. It's about what kind of neighbor are you? You're focused on who do I actually have to engage with? Who do I actually have to serve? Who do I actually have to stop and show mercy towards? And he's like, it's the wrong question. Are you the type of person that stops? Are you the type of person that engages? Are you the type of person that shows mercy? Because again, right, he says when he talks about the greatest commandments and how you engage eternal life, how you inherit eternal life, do this and you will live. If this is a part of who you are, if this becomes the way of life for you, you're not going to be concerned about, what are the limits for who I'm going to engage with. I'm going to go wherever God tells me to. I'm going to engage with whoever God tells me to. Right? I will be this representative of him because this is the way we see him live. And so he says, go and do the same. And so I think there's a chance that a lot of us probably don't have these kind of one-to-one examples of, like, maybe not on a daily basis, seeing this person who needs mercy or who has been beaten up by life, right, and is going through different things and needs assistance. We might not have those like on just kind of our practical day-to-day. But there is the potential for us to craft lives, right? Like, this is a beautiful area. I live in Summit, beautiful area, love it. There's a potential for us to craft our lives in a way that we don't engage with the individual kind of instances of people who have been beaten up and need mercy, because we've formed a life that stays on the other side. And so I don't engage with it individually because I've formed a life that doesn't engage with the culture of it and doesn't engage with the problem of it as a whole. I don't see it on a regular basis, and so I don't have opportunities to engage. But that would bring me back to the beginning of the chapter, because the command, what he did with his disciples was send them out, leave the place that you are comfortable, and go. Right? Even what he tells the lawyer here, go and do the same. It's interesting. We've turned, like, Jesus calls us to follow him. And we live in a culture where the concept of following has really been boiled down to watching something and being aware. Right? So if you follow someone on social media, if you follow a news story, if you follow your favorite team, all it really means is that you're up to date with what's happening. Like, you're aware of what's going on. This is not the following that Jesus calls us to. The following that he calls us to actually is going to require movement. It's going to require going from one space to another, both in so many ways for us internally in our spiritual walk with him, right? But that will be directly connected to the practical that we're doing as we engage with people, which is, again, is why he asks, how do you inherit eternal life? And the lawyer speaks rightly of loving God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, your strength, but brings in this second component of loving your neighbor because it's connected. And so as Jesus is calling us to follow him, it means that following Jesus is going to look like encountering people who need mercy, encountering people who have been beaten up by life, encountering people who have been marginalized. That's the path that Jesus walked. And if we're following him, then it's going to be the path that we walk. And we have to be honest about the fact that if we're not encountering people and not encountering the things and not going the spaces where Jesus went, are we following him the way he's actually called us to? Thank God for what we do in services. Thank God for what we do in buildings. But this is not the fullness of following him. Right? He calls us to go and do the same, to show mercy, the same way we've seen our Father show mercy, in the same way he has shown mercy to us. He calls us to go out and do the same.